Hello, my name is Powyżej and this is the first English-speaking episode of my podcast, which is called Above Years. Yesterday I recorded my conversation with Darren Korb from Supergigant Games, and I would like to thank him a lot, not only for talking to me, but also for putting up with all my emails and requests. His patience is incredible, so thank you very much. The conversation itself was great. Darren was a fantastic guest. We talked about the Supergigant Games, Darren's career. Of course, we talked about Bastion and how deep and personal the game is. And also we talked about newcoming Transistor. Towards the end, there is a huge surprise. Bonus for all the patient listeners. I hope you will like it. I know I did. It was fantastic, actually. So, as I said, this is the first English-speaking episode of my podcast, and it's not going to be the last. In the close future, I hope to have another conversation, and the guest is also very interesting. So if you like this one, stay tuned. Last thing, I know that I need to improve my question tag skill. I will apply myself, and sorry for the mistakes I made. If you like this conversation, please leave a comment or something like this. If you didn't like it, do it as well. So have fun listening. Okay, so hi. Maybe let's start. You've just returned from PAX, so how was it?
PAX was great. Yeah, it was pretty surreal actually. Each one is sort of more insane than the last PAX. So the number of people who are enthusiastic about the stuff that we're doing at Supergigant kind of seems to grow, and people get even more enthusiastic. And we had, all sorts of like amazing cosplayers, dressed as characters from Bastion, and then also even Transistor, which hasn't even come out yet, which is crazy.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe let's start with the beginning. So what is PAX anyway? Because it's so far away and.
Sure. Yeah. PAX stands for the Penny Arcade Expo, and it's basically a big giant video game convention celebrating video games and sort of nerd culture in general, I think, but mostly video games. And a whole bunch of developers and publishers go and show some upcoming stuff there, and there's all sorts of events associated with it as well.
Okay, so I saw on one of the videos from PAX that you performed live there. So yeah. So how was the reception? Because I only saw the you and the singer.
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. It was really cool to do, actually. We performed in the Paramount Theater in Seattle, which is this really big hall, actually, that I've never performed in a place that big before. So it was pretty cool experience to be able to do something like that. And the audience really seemed to enjoy it, and yeah, it was just a ton of fun.
Do you perform the Bastion's soundtrack a lot?
Not really. When I perform, it's mostly stuff I'm doing with my band right now. Control Group is this band I've been working with for a while. I actually haven't performed Bastion music a ton. I've done a couple of little things with Ashley here and there, but nothing on that scale for sure.
Okay. She has a wonderful voice, I must say, and I was very impressed when I was playing Bastion and her song started. It was like mind-blowing.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, I agree. I think she's got a great voice as well.
So you work together a lot?
We've not a ton. We've worked together on like one little project before Bastion, where I wrote a rock musical with my brother, and I was recording some demos for that, and I knew her through mutual friends, basically. So I asked her to come and help out. And I liked working with her on that. So when I was working on Bastion, I thought of her as somebody who had the kind of voice that I was looking for.
Can you tell me something about this musical?
Yeah, it's called Marry Me, and it was in the New York Musical Theater Festival in 2011, which was fun. And it's about two best friends who get married for the financial benefits, basically, and then wackiness ensues. It's a musical comedy.
Uh-huh. So you wrote the music, but did you perform in it, or?
I performed in the band
Uh-huh.
for it when we put it on. It was just we did a couple of staged readings for it. Yeah, I wrote the music and co-wrote the lyrics, and my brother wrote the script and co-wrote the lyrics with me.
Is it possible to hear it anyway?
Yeah,
anywhere?
I think it's still up online. MarryMeMusical.com. I think is still functioning. Yeah, there's some demos up there for it.
So you wrote a musical. You wrote the music to Bastion, and I also saw on your IMDb page that you are a cinematographer. So can you tell me something about this?
That was a long time ago. I helped my friend out with the student film, like, back in college, and I guess that made it onto IMDb. But I wouldn't call myself a cinematographer. But yeah, I when I was in high school and stuff, I had an interest in film and a little bit in college as well. But I was sort of transitioning to music throughout that period and discovering that that's sort of what I preferred doing to film. But I still enjoy film and all that stuff, and I have a lot of fun with that sometimes.
Okay.
I actually edit and put together all the trailers for Supergigant Games and everything.
Really?
So I still get to do some of that stuff. Yeah.
Wow. And also there was some information about you working for the television. Is that so?
I did a couple of little projects. I did a couple of pieces for an infomercial or two, a couple of commercials, and then I did. I had some of my music licensed by a movie, and I wrote a song for it, which was like a small kind of family movie that I think is kind of doing some international airplay, but yeah, it didn't get off the ground. I don't think that too much, that movie.
And you also have a band, yeah?
Yep.
So can you tell me something about this?
Yeah, sure. The band's called Control Group, and it's me and a couple other guys. We're a three-piece in total, and yeah, it's like very different from the stuff I'm doing for games at the moment. It's very like rock, kind of 90s rock, like Pixies influenced.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We all switch instruments and everybody sings, and yeah, it's great. We're actually doing a little tour coming up this month, so a little Massachusetts tour, so that should be fun.
So probably you won't come to Poland with this project.
No, I not any time in the foreseeable future. Not unless we all of a sudden got real successful or something. But
like superstars. And you also won some kind of championships in rock band.
Yeah, I did actually. So in 2010, Rock Band was still putting on this contest called Total Rock Total Rewards, and they partnered up with like Harrah's Casinos.
Uh-huh.
And so it was like a national championship basically, where they had regional competitions, and it was like a battle of the bands. So my band won our regional competition and got to go to Atlantic City and compete in the finals, and we ended up winning the championship. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was like it's sort of performance based and costume based, so like we all wore crazy costumes and had choreography and did the whole thing. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So you're like a Renaissance man.
I don't know. I mean, I played a lot of Rock Band, that's for sure. So.
Yeah. Okay. So a few years back, I worked in a little bookshop, and I played the Bastion soundtrack all the time. And the funny thing here is that lots of people would come to ask what it was, and only one guy knew. So was the album a success outside of the gaming world?
I have no idea. I mean, I've definitely heard of people who are familiar with the soundtrack and not familiar with the game, and so there. I mean, I think it's had some exposure outside of people who just played the game and like the music. And I've definitely heard of some people who have heard the music and then liked it, and so made them want to play the game. But yeah, it's hard to say. You know, the soundtrack seems to have done well, and a lot of people have gotten their hands on it, I think, one way or another, and so it's really cool to I mean, I've certainly never been a part of any project where like as many people have heard it, or experienced it, at least from playing the game and everything. At this point, Bastion, the game itself, has has sold over 2 million copies. So it's pretty insane to kind of think about.
Yeah, it's like a very big success, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't really have hoped for it to go better. I mean, we were all super thrilled with the results and how people have seemed to have really been enthusiastic about Bastion and really enjoyed it. So it's that's been pretty great.
But did you expect such scope of success?
I mean, no, honestly. I mean, we all thought what we were working on was cool, and we knew we liked it, and that's sort of all the only gauge we could have. It's the only gauge anybody has, really, I think. So, we really didn't know how people were going to react. I guess saw sort of flashes of that, like when we went to PAX for the first time and people were so enthusiastic about the game after playing it. That was awesome. I mean, it was really surprising and special, but again, we were all still very cautious. We don't want to become too optimistic just because it's, we have to finish the game and we have to, make sure all of it, that we delivered on the promise of what we were setting up with the very beginning that we were showing to people. And so I don't think there was any point where we were like confident that the game was going to be a blockbuster or anything like that.
Yeah, but you named your company Supergigant Games, and it's some kind of a hint, isn't it? Like
I think it. We named it after the star. A supergiant's a type of star.
Really?
Yeah, and so it's not really. I mean, maybe it's ironic. We're a little tiny company, so maybe it's ironic in that regard. But I mean, yeah, we really didn't have any idea, and are still super kind of flabbergasted by all the attention that we've gotten, and really, it's still really exciting. I mean, it's not, we certainly don't take it for granted.
As you said, the company isn't big, so how many people are working in Supergigant Games?
Right now, I think we're up to 10 team members, and we have an office manager as well. So it's like 11 people involved, basically. On Bastion, we were a team of 7, and we didn't have an office manager, and we had some couple of contractors for, effects and animation and stuff like that, and 3D modeling. But now we've kind of brought all that in-house. So we just kind of staffed up to like what we feel like is a full, kind of like a full proper team where all of our bases are covered, and that's where we're at right now, working on Transistor.
Yeah. So how did it start? So what was the Bastion the result or the reason to start the company?
I think part of the reason for starting Supergigant was really just because a few of the founders of the company were working at EA LA and it says Electronic Arts Los Angeles, and also at Infinity Ward, and so there were some people who were working for very, very big game companies, and I think they kind of got tired of the big corporate structure of game development and how kind of exhausting it is, and I mean, if you work on a team of 100 people, your best effort still is only going to have a very small impact on the final result of the game, and things like that. So I really think part of it was a desire to just kind of be able to be creative and do your own, kind of control your own destiny to some degree. And I think that's a big part of why the company started. I think originally, an action RPG wasn't necessarily something that was on the table right at the beginning. I think that idea came along later when we all decided, well, we're all pretty passionate about that, and we really like it. We were kind of scared to approach the genre at first, actually, because we're all such fans of Diablo and things like that it's like, well, how do you do something, that's going to stand up to that, so we decided to try and do something that was sort of, is different enough from that where we wouldn't really be competing in the same space as that game. We wanted to try and do something that was sort of off to the side of that, both narratively and by having direct control and things like that. We felt like it would be a different enough experience, that people wouldn't automatically compare it to Diablo and say no thanks,
But funny you should say that, but because when you mentioned Diablo, it actually fits very well. I didn't make the connection. Maybe I'm not such an addicted player, but the story in Diablo was very important, and the graphics are somehow similar. So there are some major similarities.
Sure, yeah, the perspective. I mean, the perspective being a 3/4 perspective.
Yeah, like this. And the music was marvelous in Diablo.
Yeah, no, I love the music from that, and I actually like that was one of the as far as game influences for the music for Bastion, I would say that was one of them. Just in a couple of regards, but yeah, that was an interesting game to look at during the production process, for sure. I mean, just because it was such a great Diablo 2 in particular was such a fantastic action RPG. So it really is like a great example of of the genre.
So since you're such a small developing company, I imagine that all of you had something to say in the developing process. Did you influence the story somehow?
Yeah, I think everybody sort of had an influence on kind of every part of the process, more or less. I mean, our writer and creative director, Greg Kasavin, is really sort of mostly in charge of the story, but I think everybody was able to weigh in on just about every part of the process. Because the team is so small, we all sort of have everybody's sort of just like the expert at their thing, and you still do some other stuff, but I think if there's any sort of argument about which way to go with something, I feel like the sort of expert on that thing basically is the person who everybody trusts to kind of guide that aspect of the project in the right direction.
But was there any kind of brainstorm during the process, or like?
Yeah, I mean, definitely early on we talked a lot about tone and a lot about how we wanted the game to feel, and kind of ideas about like, well, wouldn't it be cool to make one of the main early ideas that sort of influenced the way the game looks and feels to some degree is that we wanted to make an action RPG that was sort of 3/4 isometric view, but where you could see the sky somehow. So that's where the idea of like a floating island sort of came to pass.
Well, that's fantastic. Also, that there is this feel like stop and smell the flowers every once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And we wanted to make it, a post-apocalyptic setting, but we also wanted to make it beautiful. So we wanted to have some interesting contrasts in there as well. And then as far as tone goes, we talked originally a lot about like what if Cormac McCarthy made like a fantasy action RPG? What would the story for that be like? And that was one of the big kind of starting points that we had to go from at the beginning, and that's sort of what I went off and tried to make some music to inspire, to be inspired by that particular approach.
So you mentioned literature, but was one of the inspirations from the movies like the Ghibli studios or Japanese anime and this kind of stuff?
Not particularly. I mean, I think Gen Z, our artist, is a fan of some of that stuff for sure, but I don't think we took direct any real direct influence from that otherwise necessarily.
Okay. So how long have you been working on it?
Bastion?
Like, from the idea to the finished game.
Sure, yeah. We worked for about 20 months in total on Bastion, from kind of like, we started in September of 2009.
So it isn't actually that long, isn't it?
No, it's pretty short for a game development cycle for, a fairly large game where there was a lot of sort of custom things in it. We didn't automate too much about the process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I mean, we've already been working on Transistor that long and still have a ways to go. So yeah, it's definitely
yeah, but like 2014 is close enough. So
yeah, it's pretty close.
Okay, so one of the things I really loved about Bastion was that it actually moved me on so many different levels. And the game was fun, it was beautiful, and the music was great. And of course there was the story. And let me just ask you first about the story. In a game in which one of the main characters is a narrator, the story must be meaningful, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely wanted the story to stick with players and be something that was important to the feel of the game, and you know, we didn't really have the capacity to make a game with hundreds of hours of gameplay value, you know, of gameplay that people could. So we really had kind of, as far as we saw, no choice but to make the game memorable. Because we really wanted to, you know, everybody sort of expects certain things from games these days, or a lot of people do, about multiplayer, replay value, all that stuff. And we just had no intention of, you know, putting that in the game. We just couldn't. We didn't have the ability to put that in the game. So yeah, I mean, it almost came out of necessity, but we all also knew that, you know, narrative is a real important part of a lot of games that we love on the team, and wanted to do something, you know, something with that was going to be important to the game overall.
So in this one, well, this is a story of a little kid whose world has fallen apart, and he struggled to put it back together is the main quest. It feels like deeply personal, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, you know, it's open to interpretation. You know,
yeah,
it's something that can be as personal as you want it to be. I guess. I mean, it's not. We've had some really kind of touching responses to the game that we didn't even really imagine. People who've written to us and said that, you know, the game helped them cope with their divorce, or, you know, the death of a loved one, or things like that. And we've been really kind of shocked and humbled when people come to us with things like that. Because while, you know, there are definitely themes about kind of overcoming regret and overcoming, you know, walking or moving on from sort of bad situations, how you deal with tragedy.
Yeah, of course, and this theme of putting the world back together from scraps. Well,
yeah.
And well, a couple of weeks ago, I read a comic book, Three Shadows by Cyril Pedrosa. It's a story of a kid that is actually dying, and he wrote it just after his friend's kid died, and he was coping somehow with the drama this way. So, well, that was the connection I made.
Yeah.
And really it felt deeply personal. So the music, you made it all by yourself?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I had Ashley Barrett help me with some vocals, but yeah, everything else is yeah. I made it in my apartment, all by my lonesome, pretty much.
And I read somewhere that you recorded it in your closet. Is it?
Yeah, pretty much. Like all the anything I recorded with a microphone was recorded in my closet, pretty much. Yeah.
So it's a big closet, I think.
No, well, you know, it wasn't fully in the closet. I had the doors open, and sort of I would hang blankets over the doors, and I would sit like facing into the closet with the microphone facing out from the closet. So I wasn't completely enclosed in the closet, but
okay. Did you write the lyrics as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what instruments do you play?
Guitar is my first instrument, and, you know, and bass, and I play drums as well. But I didn't end up recording any live drums for the for Bastion.
Was it a choice? Well, did you want to? Why did you not choose to use drums?
Well, you know, honestly, a lot of it was just sort of constrained by budget and what I had access to. You know, I didn't really have access to a place where I could get good sounding drums. You know, live. So honestly, a lot of it was just like, well, I want to make a kind of music that I can make convincingly without, you know, real drums. So yeah, I mean, a lot of my decisions for the music in general were based on just like, well, what can I make by myself in my apartment, you know? So yeah, that's one of the main reasons I didn't do any drums. I also play some keyboards and enough to be able to write keyboard parts and stuff like that.
So you called it the genre of this music acoustic frontier trip hop. So what is it?
Yeah, I mean that was just sort of my term that I made up just to help myself kind of center all the music so that it would all sort of feel related to itself. I don't really have a ton of experience as like a traditional composer where you have to create like recurring themes for situations and characters and things like that. And so one of the ways that I felt like I could tie the music together was just by creating a genre and like having all the music sort of be in that genre, and if it was, then it would all kind of fit together. That was my
smart move, isn't it?
That was the idea anyway, and so that's really where that came from, and the ingredients of that really, I mean, I knew I wanted it to feel like kind of Western, vaguely Western, and with like a sort of a frontier, a vibe, a sort of edgy, so a vibe where it sort of feels like it's sort of on the edge of danger and things like that, which I think that kind of music implies a lot. And I wanted to also have a lot of exotic elements in there, to also imply sort of a edge of the unknown sort of feel, which is where a lot of the sort of kind of foreign instruments come into play there. I mean, obviously exotic from a Western perspective, because they're not exotic from the cultures that they're from, obviously, but
yeah, of course,
to a Western ear, I guess, exotic, and then I wanted to sort of use something to glue all that stuff together, which I found to be sort of heavily sampled sounding stuff like trip hop kind of rhythms and or urban drum percussion stuff. And I feel like, approaching things like that also, that was like it had a couple of benefits, because not only was it able to sort of modernize and glue those other things together, but it was actually a way I was able to get around my sort of limited facilities by having things sound sampled on purpose. I was able to use samples and process them in a certain way so that it could sort of seem like it was only an aesthetic choice and not out of necessity. So that was part of the goal, was to sort of hide the low production value of in which I was sort of working. Was sort of the idea.
I would have never guessed in a million years that I was an acoustic frontier trip hop fan. There was some kind of mind-blowing experience. So is the music to the Transistor also this genre?
No, actually, I'm trying to do something different. I definitely want to continue to do something eclectic and sort of transportive, but this time around I'm trying to find a new center that matches the tone of this game. The frontier thing, for example, wouldn't really be appropriate for the vibe that we're going for in this new game. I mean, this new game is a little bit darker tonally, and has more like a science fiction vibe. So some of the music's a little bit colder in terms of its feeling. I'm using a lot more electronic elements, more electric guitars. I'm also using some kind of old world European instruments, more harps and things like that. This time around to sort of help with the sort of vintage.
Because the graphics, I avoid watching the materials from the game because I want to discover it for myself. But sure. I saw some graphics and pictures, and I must say that it looks a bit like Blade Runner or something like this.
Cool.
So does the music in any way is the music in any way going to take from these kind of movies, or
I've definitely, everybody on the team loves that stuff and loves Blade Runner and things like that, and I think visually that is definitely a touchstone, one of many things that we're inspired by as a team. But yeah, musically, I'm not really I'm trying sort of not to pull directly from any one spot.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Blade Runner is definitely something that is an influence to some degree, but I think musically, probably things more like Imogen Heap, Radiohead, DJ Shadow, sort of stuff like that, is actually kind of a much bigger influence for me on this project than things that are like directly sort of science fiction music, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. So let's come back for a while to Bastion. Well, the music fit the game perfectly. So did you spend lots of hours playing it, or?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I right from the very beginning of development, I mean, Amir and Gavin, a couple of the co-founders, were living in Amir's mom's house for a bit in the living. We'd set up computers in the living room, and we're working full time from there. And in like a week or two after they started, they had something playable for me.
So you sat with a guitar and played both like the game and the music, or?
Yeah, I mean, I played a lot of the game. What was the game at that time? It was very rough, sort of just a little gray man running around a bunch of art scanned out of D&D books, And I just, talked to Amir a bunch about tone and about what we thought. We floated that idea of the sort of what if Cormac McCarthy made a. Oh, sorry, it's a siren in the background.
Oh, okay.
I live on a busy street here in Brooklyn, but yeah, we sort of floated the idea about like what if Cormac McCarthy made a fantasy video game, and so I sort of went with what I'd seen of the gameplay and how that felt to me and what I thought would be an interesting take on the music, and I just sort of went and experimented a little bit and came up with a few pieces, and we sort of started to have a direction tonally at that point, I think.
So which track was the first one?
I think a version of Mine Windbag Mine was actually the very first thing I did.
That's great song. I like it
thanks.
very much. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, that one was one of the first things I did, and I edited it down significantly. Originally, it was like much longer and more like trippy, a little bit more like Flaming Lips or something. And I sort of refined it to match the tone of the rest of the music later once I'd made a bunch more pieces. And then I think I made Bin the Breaker pretty early on as well, and then also In Case of Trouble. Were all like real early pieces that I made for the project.
Okay. There are these two moments in the game that I will remember for a long time. Like the first one is when this level when you meet the girl for the first time and you hear her singing throughout all the level. It was really great. And the second one was the ending when you decide what to do and the music and everything. It worked so well.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean those were important moments to us too. I mean we wanted. Sorry, a siren. I'll wait.
Yeah,
for that.
it's okay. Like I expect New York to be like this.
Yeah. So anyway, we wanted the moments where there's singing in the game. Those early on, we kind of had the idea that we wanted that. We had all played games like Portal and like Plants vs Zombies and stuff that all sort of effectively had these fun sort of songs with vocals at the end, and particularly
there was this finale moment like in the Portal. It was great.
Yeah, it was a great payoff in Portal. Yeah, it was really fantastic, and we thought it would be cool to do something like that, just because I mean for me it was sort of practical, where like I'm a songwriter, I have experience I feel comfortable writing songs, so that was part of it, and then another part of it was we'd like to try to do this, but in a way that is sort of not necessarily just a comedic payoff, but is kind of in part, it really enhances the emotion of a gameplay moment, So yeah, that was the goal. and we found a few opportunities to do that in the game as we went along, and yeah, I'm pleased with how that stuff ended up in the game. I think it definitely helps out and creates some pretty cool moments for sure.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect a game to make such an impression, because usually it's not this way that you have. Well, the ending it's a different part, but in the middle you're just playing and waiting to finish, and this was really something different, like a complete artwork, or I don't know how
Great.
to say.
Well, thanks. Yeah, that's great. That's the idea.
So it worked well. So is the new game also going to be like this deep personal touch?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely intend to, take the player along a journey emotionally and everything, and really try to involve the player as much as we can and make it as engrossing as possible. We really feel like atmosphere and tone are things that are really, really important to us as developers, and we really want to create like a rich environment for players to sort of immerse themselves in. And I feel like that, integrating music and music with vocals sometimes can be a really powerful tool for that. So this time we expect to have even more kind of vocal pieces than last time. Hopefully there will be an impact on players. We will find out.
Well, I really am curious and I can't wait.
Great.
So, is there anything that you can say actually about the new game? Is it also going to be the action RPG game?
Yeah, it's an action RPG, but it feels pretty different actually to play, because it's we're sort of trying to balance sort of real time combat with actually some sort of more turn-based strategic combat. So basically, while you're playing the game, you can go through it in real time and sort of attack enemies and everything like that in real time, but we've set up this kind of turn mode where you can pause the game at any time and freeze time,
so
and
like
plan it.
Fallout or something like this?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. We all really love the old Fallout 1 and 2 in particular, and turn-based games, strategy games are really near and dear to a lot of us on the team, but a lot of them can be pretty like inaccessible for some players. They're like hard to get into for some people, and we wanted to sort of combine the immediacy of the real-time combat with sort of the depth and strategy that turn-based combat can provide. So yeah, we allow the player to freeze time and plan out all their actions, and you have sort of as much time as you like to do that. And then, when you unfreeze time, you'll sort of execute them real fast. All the plans you all the things you set up in your plan, and it creates a really interesting ebb and flow to the combat and interesting tension that we're really happy with.
So in Bastion there were like 5 characters or something like this. It was very, very intimate and well, it was intimate. And is this new game also going to be like this?
Yeah, probably it'll be close to the level of intimacy of the last one. We're not, positive. We're not talking too much about that just yet, but there will be some characters in this one, as well.
So like the narrator as well?
We have a different sort of setup this time. We do have kind of a persistent voiceover in this game, but it's actually less of a narrator and more of a character in the game. So this time, our main character, Red, she has this super powerful weapon called the Transistor. And it's actually the weapon that, like a voice that comes from the weapon that speaks to her throughout the game. So it's more like a companion character. So as opposed to being an omniscient narrator who's sort of telling the story of what happens and already knows everything that's going to happen, this character is sort of experiencing it with you and reacting to it with you. And it's a character that sort of it creates some a lot of interesting opportunities for us to play with the relationship between your character and the character that's speaking and things like that. So yeah, it's a pretty different. Narratively, it feels pretty different to us, even though sort of on the surface it might seem similar in that there's a voice kind of speaking to you the whole time.
So the guy that did the work of narrators has a great voice.
Yep.
So how old is he? Because
How old? He's my age. He's 29.
I would have never guessed. Like
Yeah.
100 years old. Or
Yeah. I know. He's great. He's a friend of mine from growing up from high school, actually, and Amir and Logan and I all sort of grew up together in San Jose, California.
So, well, you also worked on all the voiceovers and sounds in the game. Was it a tiring task, or did you like it?
It was fun. I mean, it was a big challenge for me because I'd never done anything like that before, really. So I was just sort of learning as I went about how to do that. Especially the sound effects. That was sort of the most challenging, probably, for me, just because it was the most foreign. The thing I was sort of the least familiar with.
Because there are the sounds of the weapons, like pistols, guns, and everything. So how did you do that?
It was a combination of things. I used some like sample libraries combined with kind of processing and synthesis, and then also a little bit of sounds I recorded myself as well. And then, sometimes I would just make crazy sounds with my mouth and process them, and all sorts of stuff. So a lot of different ways.
Okay. Well, that I don't have any more questions. Would you like to say about something you are going to do, maybe, or something?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you wanted me to play a song, I could do that.
I would love to. I really would love to.
Cool. Yeah, I'll let me grab my guitar. I'm gonna switch headphones here.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Just one sec. Cool, so I'm going to have to put these headphones down so I won't be able to hear you for a little bit.
What are you going to play?
I'm going to play, I think I'm going to play Mother, I'm Here.
Wow, great.
Which is, I sing that, I perform that on the soundtrack as well. So I'm going to give that a shot. So let me put on my other headphones and I will...
Okay.
I'll be back on in a couple of minutes.
And I shut up.
All right. Okay, let's see here. Okay. I can hear my dog. All right, here we go. I set my sail, fly the wind, it will take me back to my home, sweet home. Lie on my back, clouds are making way for me. I'm coming home, sweet home. I see your star, you left it burning for me. Mother, I'm here. Eyes open wide, feel your heart and it's glowing. I'm welcome home, sweet home. I take your hand, now you'll never be lonely. Not when I'm home, sweet home. I see your star, you left it burning for me. Mother, I'm here. All right, I'm back.
Wow, that was great, really.
Thank
wow.
you very much.
You know, I play this song in the car when I'm driving, and my whole family is singing. So
That's amazing.
I really wanted to sing with you, but
Awesome. No, that's great. Yeah.
Well,
so cool. I sorry, I think I picked up my dog chewing on his bone in the background, but other than that, it should be okay.
It's perfect. Okay, so thank you very much, and it was really nice talking to you.
Yeah, great. Good to talk to you too.